Okay, we are 10 seconds in, so we're starting the actual audio part of the stream. So today, I'm streaming a bit later than I intended, but that's okay because I wanted the natural sunlight. And what we're going to be doing is those drawings I've been doing, some of them, I'm going to be painting with watercolor paints. So real quick, let's swap over to the camera. Okay, so here is the first painting, first drawing we're going to be painting on. You can see I've already used some of my calligraphy pens to ink, but I've also got this beautiful palette of watercolor paints, and I am going to be using those to add additional colors to this particular drawing. So first things first, we're going to get some of this yellow so that it's actually usable. And we're just going to paint right here in the center of this flower. Watercolors are fun to work with, but most people, myself included, really haven't touched them much since like elementary or honestly even kindergarten. And you can see how they're kind of mixing with the blue calligraphy ink that I used and giving this flower an overall green center, but I still like how it looks. And believe me, there's definitely flowers that have green centers. I'm hoping it'll be a bit more yellow as it dries, but we'll see. Now, we're going to go ahead and use an actual green that we want to be green for the leaves and the stem, and I'm going to have to be real delicate with the stem at least because it is so thin. Now this is a mixed media sketchbook, so I'm hoping that it'll just absorb this watercolor and not bleed through onto the page underneath. We'll just have to see what happens though. If it does, well, that can give us a very interesting gnome, because that's what's on the other side of the page. Very carefully and delicately paint down this stem. I've been meaning to do this kind of thing with this watercolor book, or this mixed media book, ever since I got it, and I just haven't really sat down to do it, but today seemed like a good day. Because I've got the natural light from the windows. I'm only having to use one of the additional lights here at my desk. So, okay, we're going to get just a bit more water. Oops. Oh well. The beauty of watercolor is it doesn't really matter if it's perfect, it's still going to look kind of pretty. So, it's very rare to see very definite, detailed watercolor pieces, because it's a media that flows. It doesn't stay where you put it necessarily. But that can give you some really interesting effects, so I'm not exactly fussed about it. Just going to go over this leaf again, add a little bit more water again, and once again I am just using a glass yogurt pot for my wash cup, because why not? Reuse instead of recycle. Plus, they're very handy. Okay, so that is our flower, which again, a little bit different color than I like, but if we look at the back of the page, it did not bleed through at all. So it's kind of warped the shape of the page, but it is definitely still good. I'm responding to someone. Okay. So my only concern with this is the fact that now this page is wet, and I need to access this page, because we're next going to watercolor the gnome. So I need to wait for this to dry. Or... kind of wish I'd thought to grab some parchment paper from the kitchen. I could just put parchment paper under the flower. Oh well. It's not going to do any harm to kind of lay over there. So, okay. Now I need to figure out what to do with the gnome, because I've really been wanting to paint these gnomes. Because apparently that's a thing that I want to do sometimes, is paint gnomes. We're going to start with... now these are going to be interesting for painting him because they're all kind of vaguely sparkly. I do have another set of paint pots, but I discovered today as I was, going to grab them, that they are pre-mixed watercolor paints, and I'm not used to that, so there's a little bit of a do I want to do that? I'll probably play with them later, but not on stream, not until I've gotten the hang of them. Now he is going to have a bit of a purplish tinge to him, given that he was drawn with purple calligraphy ink, and it seems to want to bleed even more than the blue did. So our gnome is looking somewhat bruised, but he's a mechanic, so it makes sense. Battered and bruised is fairly normal for mechanics. I do think I chose a very good color that's working well as a flesh tone, so just bruised. Okay, now for his beard, I want it a bit darker than his skin, so we're gonna go with this brown, and he's got a purple beard. The brown is not going to overshadow the purple in this case. That was probably a less than wise decision on my part to draw over, but I didn't realize the calligraphy inks would run when they got water on them, so can't say anyone can blame me for it. It was just how things ended up. It's okay. Gnomes can have purple beards and bruised purple skin. It's fine. Good to know for the future, though. Calligraphy ink and watercolor, maybe not the best combo. Which is a shame, because I like doing my drawings in calligraphy ink. It's fun. And pretty. I'm gonna have to get real close. Yeah, that's a very Very purple beard. Okay. Now, for the shirt. It's fairly traditional for mechanics to wear like a blue or gray shirt. So we're going to use a lighter blue here. I'm going to be very careful around the sleeves and collar, and especially around his name tag, because I don't want his name to run. That's turning out nicely. I like that color on him. Okay. I hope that y'all can hear me. I know that I talk fairly quietly, but I hope y'all can hear me. In good news, for those who have been following along on the Mason Buys a House thing, our closing is set for tomorrow. So we will finally have the house we should have closed on back on the 23rd of last month. Which is good, because I'm sick of worrying about it. The goal is tomorrow, when my spouse finishes work, we immediately go to the title company and sign paperwork, and I've already scheduled the money to be transferred over first thing tomorrow morning, so I don't have to worry about that. And then I also have a dentist appointment tomorrow, so I will hopefully stop having the constant tooth pain that I've been dealing with, which is thankfully not being too bad today, which is very good because I do have work today, but not for a while, so. I'm going to just leave his name tag white, because a lot of them have, just a plain white name tag on top of their blue shirt, so blue or gray. I actually have a patch on my jacket that looks like one of the mechanics' name tags, but it's a clothing brand called Chubbs. So I just have a name tag or what looks like a name tag that says Chubbs, which is very fitting for me. It was sent to me by a friend who happened to find it and thought that I might appreciate it. They were correct. So, I don't know why his arm just magically disappeared. Well, I know why his arm magically disappears. His arm magically disappears because I really didn't want to draw a hand. Because I don't like drawing hands because I'm not good at it. I know plenty of professional artists who also are not good at drawing hands and don't like doing them, so I don't feel too bad about it. I'm not a professional. I'm just kind of here to have fun. But I still don't like drawing hands, because they're hard. Oops. We're just going to brush that in and mix it with the rest of the shirt. There we go. We can say these oddly colored spots are just grease stains on his shirt. He's a mechanic. Of course he has grease stained shirts. Now for the other side. in preparation for the move, I have been putting together a cost sheet of here's how much money we'll have to work with versus here's how much money we're going to need to spend to do X, Y, and Z. And as my mother pointed out to me, be careful, honey, that money goes fast. Yes, it does. So I'm going to have to be very cautious in what I decide is a necessity versus what is just this would be nice. Originally we had planned for French doors to be added at one point so that we can keep cats away from plants. I'm going to have to do an estimate on that. I need to measure the doorway first to see if we can just buy the pre-hung French doors or if we'll have to get a actual, team out to put them in. That's definitely going to be a matter of helping decide whether or not we're doing that. If not, there are other options that can be done, so I'm not too fussed, but we'll just have to see how things go. But hey, I'll be able to take a tape measure over there and measure the space that I need them for certain tomorrow. And then I'll be able to get my answer pretty quickly. Okay. Right, so he now has his shirt. Now I have to figure out what I'm going to do with the hat, which originally I was planning to do like rainbow stripes, but given the colors that are running with the purple, I might do something different. I know that I don't want to use any orange because orange and purple are I don't remember if they're contrasting colors or complementary colors, but either way, if you mix them, it turns into brown. So we're going to go with some pink, because who doesn't love a bright, cheerful pink? He's a gnome with a purple beard. Pink seems perfectly appropriate for him. Let's just do alternating stripes of pink, and then I'll have to figure out the other color. I'm also discovering as I go along that the less water I add to the paint, the easier it is to control where the paint actually is going. Which, I mean, makes sense, but of course hadn't occurred to me yet, so. But now I know. So for my Soul viewer at the moment, if you feel like you have an idea of what color I should do to complement the pink stripes, feel free to let me know in the chat. Unlike when I'm doing my gaming streams, I can see it during my crafting streams. You can see I added a bit more of the water to the pink, and now it is a little more flowy, and also it is starting to affect the purple stripes, so I'm getting a bit more bleeding. But that's okay. This is all just for fun, so it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to make me happy. Now you guys aren't seeing it as well because it's not showing up quite as darkly as the other colors were. It still very much fits in and kind of blends, but it is this pale pink that I think looks very good. Still have no idea what other color I should do on the hat, but we'll figure it out. Okay, that's all of the pink. I thought I would have a little more time to figure it out, but apparently not. You know what? Green and pink look good together. We'll go with this somewhat brighter shade of green. Not the same green that we used for the leaves on the plant. It's actually a brighter, lighter shade of green than that. It's kind of a, I think they call it a spring green. It looks good though. I like it. Did end up with a little bit of the color bleeding into the nose, so now his nose is not only bruised purplish, but also bruised greenish, so obviously that bruise is healing. Okay. In sad news, my boss at work just left the company yesterday. So not thrilled with that. I don't know who my new boss is going to be. There are 3 people that they're talking about having it, but one of them I'm kind of going, she doesn't work just overnight. She works night and day shift, and if she takes over as overnights, she is never sleeping. And that's not good for her, especially with her health being what it is. So I don't know how they're going to split it up. I am hoping that this doesn't turn it into another, couple months of, hey, Mason, you should become a team lead. Because I don't want to be a team lead. I don't like being the one who gets called out on the carpet for other people's mistakes. So, if anything, promotion-wise, I would like to be promoted to training. Because, as I've said multiple times, I'm tired of them putting out new agents on the floor who are practically untrained. Because then I, as floor support, have to fix it and get them doing what they should. Okay, so Bob the Gnome is now painted. I'm going to close this for just a second, and we're going to flip back over and see. Okay, so the flower is all dry, so we can fold that under and flip Bob over so he can dry while we work on painting Roy, who obviously works at the same mechanics shop as Bob, because he's got the same type of name badge. So we'll go ahead and... Now I think Roy has a somewhat darker skin tone than Bob. I've always gotten the idea that Roy has kind of rosy cheeks. You can see a bit more of his face than you can Bob. So we're going to give Roy it's still a skin tone, but it's more pink than what Bob had. Roy, you can see his eyes, which somehow makes him slightly more terrifying, and yet not. Oh, now around Roy's eyes there's going to be a lot of purple, because there's a lot more details, so obviously Roy has not been getting nearly enough sleep. He's got big purple bags under his eyes. I mean, he's got big purple all around his eyes, but you know. Roy just needs to get in a few more hours. He'll be fine. Okay, and then Roy's eyes are done, so let's go ahead and paint Roy's arms. Roy's a bit chubbier than Bob, and also has somehow managed to squeeze his arms into these sleeves that are way smaller than they need to be for him. So his upper arm looks smaller than his lower arm. It's kind of like Popeye. I am fairly certain that Popeye's distinct appearance had a lot to do with chronic health conditions that were undisclosed in the show. Just saying. Poor Bob. He's giving us a thumbs up, but I think his hand was recently crushed by something because it's bright purple. He's being so brave. Maybe that's why it looks like he's about to cry. Now my next question, when I think about it, what kind of things would gnome mechanics, and I don't mean in the WoW sense of gnomes, so they're not the technical geniuses that WoW gnomes were. What sort of things would gnome mechanics work on? Do they rotate the wheels on your horse? Is it a hobby horse? Those don't have wheels either. Well, no, some of them did. Anyway. Okay, so Roy has skin now. Let's see. We're going to go with sort of a tealish, turquoise-ish, oh, that's way too much water, blue for Roy's beard. But it's going to be purple anyway. Probably should have color tested the calligraphy ink before putting water on it. Oh well, live and learn. You can kind of see shades of green among the purple. Oh no, I'm liking how they turn out, so. My pictures, my painting. Okay, so Roy now has his beard painted. So let's see. Now, because they work at the same mechanic shop. Oh, I didn't finish his beard. One moment. Roy actually has a longer beard that hangs down over his shirt. There we go. Now, let's go about painting that shirt itself. Just a touch more water. There we go. Just like with Bob, I want to be really careful around the name badge and the pocket. Because I don't want those bleeding too much. Well, the pocket got a bit bleedy, but the name tag looks good, so. There we go. I will just paint around the pocket really quick. There. And just like with Bob, I have no idea where Roy's arms go. They just kind of disappear. But it's okay. Now there is another, at least one more gnome drawn in this book after Roy, but I'm not sure I want to paint him on stream because frankly, he's the gnome that kind of terrifies me. He has massive teeth and looks very, very upset. I won't say mad, because he honestly to me looks more sad than angry, but still, he looks upset. We'll see how things go with painting Roy. If I finish in a decent amount of time and I've still got time to stream more, then yeah, I'll probably go ahead and paint the other gnome, who I suddenly cannot remember the name of. I just realized this blue of their shirts, it is very much a denim, which makes sense because plenty of mechanics wear like denim jumpsuits normally. At least the ones I know. And I know an oddly large number of mechanics. And not just the ones who work on my car. I have several family members that are mechanics. So Roy, unlike Bob, has taken meticulous care to keep his buttons nice and orderly. So we're going to try and ensure they stay that way. By just kind of barely dabbing the paint around them. We're still picking up some of the purple from the calligraphy, but we are managing to keep it out of the insides of the buttons, which is what my goal is, so. There we go. So Roy has his tidy little row of buttons. Oh good, Bob's starting to dry pretty well, so good. Yeah, you can see on one side Roy's arm is much bigger than on the other. Maybe he got a shirt that was built weird. Maybe I'm just bad at drawing perspective. Probably the latter. Would it be perspective or would it be anatomy? Either way, probably, you know, ultimately that I'm just bad at drawing. But that's okay. Heaven knows if my goal on drawing or painting was perfection, anatomical accuracy, any of that, I would just not draw or paint. Need a little bit more water on this to finish this last bit. And then I get to figure out what to do with Roy's hat. Got to have some individuality here. So I can't obviously give him the same pink and pink and green that Bob had. Also, I need to adjust because the couch is eating me. Because my couch eats people. Okay. So. I don't want to do purple because, like I said previously, it will mix with the, or I don't want to do orange because it'll mix with the purple and will look really unpleasant. So let's do red. Which is not picking up a ton of the purple, which I'm happy about. But again, that's that trick of give it less water when you mix in the watercolors. You can see how it picks up the purple when I go directly across it, so. Also, still got to figure out what color to go for the other stripes. Suppose I could leave them white, and he could just have a candy cane hat. Not that candy canes are all white anymore. They come in a myriad of colors and a myriad of flavors. And I do have a white color in here. It's kind of a beige more, but still. That could be interesting. And you know, Roy looks like someone who has a bit of a sweet tooth. So yeah, let's do that. You can see I was trying to turn the hat so that it was flopped over some and not just straight up and down. I'll have to work on making that look a bit better in the future, but not right now. Believe me, I really like drawing these gnome mechanics, so this is a series that will be continuing. Okay. I'm going to clean that brush really well. One of the issues that shows up a lot when people are using watercolors is that they end up accidentally mixing their colors, and they turn kind of muddy colored and not so pleasant. And then people think that watercolors just, you know, well, it doesn't work, it just turns into this gross mess, etc., etc. But it's not that that's always the case. I just realized the white I'm using is the same white I used for his skin. So he's his hat is the same color as his skin, so that's interesting. At least in parts. It's also red in other parts, so you know. It does mean that it shows up more of a bruised color because the white really does mingle with the calligraphy ink a lot. Could be because it took more water for me to get it mixed properly. Most likely it's that. Maybe I should change Roy's skin color just a little bit. Maybe add something a little bit less hat color. Because at the moment it looks like his hat is made out of skin dyed with blood, which is not what I was going for with Roy. I mean, yes, part of the theme is that the mechanics are supposed to get slightly creepier with each iteration, but I didn't mean for that. Roy is very early in the Mechanic Gnomes series, so he's not supposed to be one of the creepy ones. I mean, aside from being a gnome, which apparently at least one of my friends finds very creepy. I wanted him to have kind of a rosy tone, so we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of our pink over the white. That'll give him a bit more of a tone that isn't the same as his hat. Still a lot of purple around the eyes just because of the ink bleeding, but that's okay. His arms can have this. I think this is the skin tone that my mother used to refer to as ruddy, which I always took to mean you have reddish skin. I don't know if that's what the term actually means, but that's what I always thought she meant. There we go. And that is Roy all done. Okay, so we're going to close this. Check on... Yes, Bob is nice and dry. So we flip Bob under and flip Roy over. Okay, so here is Don, who is not that creepy still, but he is much more muscular than either Roy or Bob were. The next one in the series, the one that is creepy, is Reg, who honestly looks like he's crying, but also has, like, really sharp teeth, which is a little nerve-wracking. Okay, so... In good news, I don't know if I mentioned it yesterday during the gaming stream, but my father on Friday had to go to the ER. They thought it might have been a heart attack, but it turns out, and this is where it's good news, not the whole my dad went to the ER. That's not the good news. The doctors now believe it is actually gallstones that had been untreated. So he should make a full recovery. He's in a lot of pain right now, but at least it's not, you know, another heart attack, which would make it his third. We're going to give Dawn somewhat darker skin. Like Reg, he has more, well, he actually has visible eyes, which, you know, Bob didn't. But his eyes are smaller, and they're not quite as detailed, which actually makes it easier to prevent the ink bleeding around them. But Dawn is going to have this slightly darker complexion. Maybe Dawn just tans really well. Maybe he's part Italian. Who knows? Don also is smart enough to roll his sleeves up to above his biceps, so his arms don't look like they are stuffed into sausage casings. Don is smart that way. Or maybe I just got better at drawing biceps. He is definitely the most muscled so far. think that Dawn is going to be the last gnome that we paint today. Also, I figured out, oh, here's how you hide their hands. Instead of just making it disappear, have them cross their arms. Plus, it looks like Dawn is, like, leaning on a table, so... Gotta go over this a second time because it just picked up too little pigment. What? Oh. My phone thought it was I was talking to it. I was not. I do not talk to my phone. I actually have... No. Go away. Go away. I try very hard to keep things like Google Assist and other things where you talk to electronic devices and they listen and understand you at a minimum in my house. I do not want to help Skynet get any smarter than it will be. You know the AIs that I interact with? I interact with the art AIs. The ones where you give it a suggestion and it creates an image based on that. Those are the ones I play with. I do not do the voice chat, the testing to see how intelligent it is, if it can pass a Turing test. No. Not my thing. I like my computers and machines to do exactly what I tell them to do and nothing else. I do not need them smarter than I am. I'm already dumb enough. I have enough people who are smarter than me around me. I don't need the machines making me feel even more dumb. Alright. So, of course, Don will have the exact same shirt as his coworkers. And always, we go very carefully around the name badge so that we don't color it on accident. Now, Don, we cannot actually see the buttons on his shirt because of how his arms are, and his beard hangs down to cover them perfectly. So, we don't have to worry about that. I still need to figure out what color his beard will be once I have gotten to that point, but for right now we're just going to focus on his shirt. We do see that he also has a tidy little button on his pocket, so we will try to keep that tidy, though it looks like it is going to end up soaking in some purple. That's fine. That is okay. Alright. Going to really carefully go along his biceps so that not too much of it ends up shirt colored. And this is actually, I mean, you guys have seen me do this before when painting other things. I like to go around and outline to ensure that there's less room for bleed over, things like that. So, here in a bit, once I'm done streaming, I will need to get my plants out of the kitchen where they are being watered. Still very miffed at our cat, at one of the cats, I should say, who decided to get on my desk where she is not allowed and bite the traps off of my Venus flytrap, which I knew that it was struggling, but I didn't realize that's what it was. I thought I was just somehow missing, my counts on the traps. I think it'll make a full recovery if I can keep her away from it, but it had reached a point where I was starting to think, hey, I need to go ahead and divide this and get the other half of it over to a friend of mine who has been suggesting that they might want to try their hand at the Venus flytrap. I know I've mentioned this before, but Venus flytraps, you have to be very careful how you get them. You need to make certain you are getting them from a grower, because they are going extinct in the wild, because poachers will find out where they are, and they will go out and dig them up and then sell them, because they can do so, for much, they can earn more from selling them that way than they can from, using the time and effort to grow Venus flytraps. Now, of course, anything that is greenhouse grown, lab grown, etc., the original plant did come from the wild, because they're not a species that is very easy to propagate from seeds. So you can't just go out and gather seeds from them. You do have to get one of the actual plants, and then you make clones of it, which is the best way to spread them. So, it is perfectly reasonable to get a Venus flytrap and then propagate it. It's actually encouraged, because the more of them then can be spread in captivity, the less of them will be removed from the wild. Will it permanently end the issues with poaching? No. It's not going to. Just let's leave it at that, because there will always be people who, if they can make a quick buck, they're going to, even if it's at the expense of everything else or everyone else. It's why, working in the banking industry like I do, we have to take so many precautions, so much additional security, because there are definitely people out there who will try to access other people's accounts and use them to do things that they shouldn't. There's definitely people who will access other people's accounts and then just take all the money out of those accounts, So, there's definitely reasons why we have to take precautions, but it's still frustrating. So we are going to add one very small detail that you have not seen from previous gnomes, and that is Reg has a mouth, a visible mouth. Or Dawn has a mouth, sorry. Reg did not have a visible mouth. But Dawn has a visible mouth, and I'm going to be very careful with his beard. I just realized Don needs a pink beard. He just does. So. Now, of course, because of the color bleeding, most of the beard will be purple. But if I can get these little bits of pink in there, then I think that'll be really cute. It just seems right. The big, tough guy has a pink beard. Even if with all of the other, like with all of the other gnomes, it actually turns out purple. Sorry, having to stretch out my leg because it hurts. Oh well. You live and learn, and you realize maybe using colored calligraphy inks that might possibly run is not the best idea to do drawings. Okay, so while I'm working on his beard, if anyone would like to make suggestions for his hair color, feel free. I would love to hear them. I think I might have to do a second coat of a different color over his mouth just to make it stand out compared to the rest. But we'll look at how we'll see how it looks once it's dry. He has a very cotton candy-ish beard. Mixed colors. I think I'm seeing more of the colors than you guys are because, of course, camera technology being what it is, it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to show you guys the true colors the same way that I'm seeing them in person. Once he's dried, I think I'll add an extra bit of red to his mouth and see if we can get that a bit more. Okay, so hat colors for our Don. You know, with being very careful, I might be able to pull off orange. We'll see. It might turn into mud. So, here's hoping. The original gnome that started this whole series, who I have jokingly referred to as Gnome Prime to my friends online that have been watching this series as it progressed. He has a rainbow hat, but he is also on paper that is not mixed media paper, and so I really can't paint him. I'll have to use like markers or colored pencils or something when I finally get around to coloring him some. I think this is going to be doable. I'm using minimal water. There's a few spots where it's bleeding a little, but really not that badly. And the orange does look very nice and bright and vibrant. Okay. You can kind of see how, as I progress, I'm picking up more water off of my palette because I keep having to rinse the brush, and each time I rinse the brush gets more wet, which means it transfers more water to the paint, which means I end up with, runnier paint, and therefore more likelihood of bleeding from the ink. But as long as I'm being careful with what I'm doing, it's not turning out too badly. I like it. See, that one's a bit more bleedy, and you can see how it turned kind of a gross brownish gray. I'm going to try to get just a touch more orange. Now, let's go ahead and do the rest of his hat in a purple. And we're actually intending it to be purple this time. It's a very pale purple compared to what we've been using, because it's actually purple and not calligraphy ink that is bleeding. But if it does bleed, I'm not as bothered because it's the same color, sort of. Getting a bit more water on purpose. It's a very pale purple I'm using. So it's not necessarily picking up or visible that much when I put it down. That's why I keep having to add a bit of water to it. This paint cup is definitely going to be reserved for using these watercolors in the future, because the paint cup is now full of glitter. Because these particular watercolors are glittery. Once I finish with Dawn, I believe we will be done for the day. So, I will, of course, next week, once everything has dried fully, show them off on the crafting stream. If I remember, if anyone would like to remind me, feel free, because I will forget. I'm going to have to make it a point to do my crafting stream in the middle of the night next week, because during the evening I will probably be moving. So I'm going to have to get all of my stuffs done early in the morning, because I will not have time before work. Okay. Alright, so that is all the gnomes I'm painting today. Close that up. Double check. Yes. Roy is also dry. We're going to leave Dawn to dry on top so that we don't have to worry about him getting stuff anywhere else. I'm going to show off. That is what the watercolor paints turned the water into. It's very gray and glittery because of the mix. Alright. So, I hope that everyone had fun watching. I will be returning next week, and next week should be a Star Wars gaming stream. If people enjoyed watching me do watercolors, then I will happily do them again next week. Actually, I might do them again next week just because they're fairly portable and easy to transport, and I might have already packed up a lot of my other crafting supplies. So we'll just see how it goes, but I do want to thank everyone who came out. I hope that you had a lot of fun with me today, but I want you to make certain that you take care of yourself, you take care of each other's, you stay safe, and I'll see you next Saturday for the gaming stream. Bye.